appreciate your attendance for our February 8th special meeting for the budget workshop. First thing I'll do is should I do call order in the office? So we'll call the meeting to order and we'll go through roll call. Mike.
Mike Sharon, Huber.
Thank you. Eric. Thanks, Gabe.
Steve Marks, Huber.
Carrie. No Carrie. Joe.
Joe Coletti, Huber.
Thank you. Mary.
Mary Kochevsky, Marlboro.
Thank you. Sue. I don't think Sue can participate. Heather.
Heather Summer, Huber.
Thank you. Kirsten.
Kirsten Robinson.
Great, thanks. And we have a new board member, Pam. Did she make it tonight?
Sure, she said she wasn't.
Okay, great. Okay, sorry. We do have one new board member, Pam Farrington, and then Mike Morris from Huber. Okay. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, great. Before we move on, I think I want to make just a quick statement. As our superintendent communicated, there was an incident last Friday at Ram High School involving a racially charged message scrawled on a student bathroom stall door. Mr. McNamara and the board are aware of some of the concerns of the community from both ends of the spectrum of opinion on the degree of the problem as it relates to the now 2 race-related incidents this school year and the response. I speak as one individual board member, but I feel very confident in my fellow board members' support in reiterating what I said in November. This behavior and the dogmas associated with it will not be tolerated, period. As one faculty member reminded me, while it is unfortunate to have these incidents, it is also necessary to recognize that the things you expect to have happen as a result happened. A student felt confident enough to trust a staff member in reporting. A staff member felt confident enough to trust an administrator in reporting it. And our administrator validated that trust by immediately and transparently addressing it in accordance with the policy and the law. And that won't change either. To describe our communities in Ram as hopelessly divided and fraught with racism is inaccurate. But it's also inaccurate to describe our communities in Ram as having no issues with racism. Unfortunately, I think that's relatively a fair assessment of most communities. The superintendent has done exactly what we hired him to do. Identified needs and applied resources to address those needs in a balanced and common sense approach to address those specific issues at Ram. He's been publicly transparent and communicative in his approach, and I'm confident he will continue to do so. The specific resource assisting Ram is Joelle Murchison. The community had an opportunity to hear and see and comment on her presentation on how she proposed to help at a public board meeting in November of 2022. What impressed me most about her commitment, what impressed me most was her commitment to a balanced approach, to identify through discussion how to best facilitate greater inclusivity and mutual respect. I had an opportunity at the publicly communicated event last night to participate in one of her facilitated conversations. It was exactly what Joelle had promised. No more and no less. It was a balanced, open, respectful, and honest discussion with a continued commitment to further balanced discussions to improve inclusivity and mutual respect at Ram. All right. Based on that comment and finishing with that, we'll move on to item 3, which is public comment. Sorry, bear with me. I have to go through a quick reading. Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Education may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes, and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Education is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. So at this time, is there anyone physically present that would like to give public comment? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone online who would like to give public comment? If so, raise your digital hand or make yourself otherwise known, please. Anybody here? No? Okay. All right, that being said, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. It's the next item on the agenda is discuss the workshop presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Morris. This evening we have 5 different departments that are going to present to the Board of Education, giving a high-level overview of the goals of their department coupled with the budget drivers recalculating each of their departments. I'm pleased to welcome our department coordinators for social studies, math, and world language, our athletic director, as well as our director of technology. This evening, we're going to start off with having Jen Stahoviak, our social studies program department coordinator, and she's going to come on up and talk a little bit about what's new and exciting in social studies.
There's supposed to be a microphone?
No, we just put it up there for the
Okay,
audience.
so with clarity. Good evening, thank you for this opportunity. I'm sure that you all had an opportunity to look at my budget slides, all 3. And you'll probably see that our budget remains quite small and compact. My goal is to maintain our existing comprehensive programming with the resources that we can purchase. And fortunately for our discipline, a lot of what we need is available online. And as such, I'm able to get it there. A lot of our digital needs are supplied by the library media specialist budget, our online subscriptions and so forth. So the bulk of our requests really are instructional supplies. I do have a couple of high school teachers who would like to attend a psychology conference this summer. And unfortunately, in recent years have been canceled due to COVID. So they're hopeful they could go. It's really not much cost except for transportation. Otherwise, we have not requested field trip funding this year. We recognize the volatility of fuel costs and the availability of bus drivers. So field trips aren't always the most feasible in our current climate. That said, the high school budget comes in at just $105 over, but the middle school budget comes on considerably lower to the tune of $1,400. So we've been fortunate to get a lot of the supplies we need to support our new programs and our new electives in the last couple of years. So we're hoping that a lot of our instructional supplies will support more project-based inquiry style learning opportunities.
Does anybody have any questions that run by Jen specific to the social studies?
It's very exciting. Yes, sir.
I'm going to reveal my ignorance here.
Okay.
What is the difference between a new course offering and an additional elective option?
So this year we were able to offer 5 new elective courses that the Board of Ed approved in October of 2022. So we were very excited, and I wanted to highlight that we offer a significant number of electives in our department. So this year we do have to offer the state mandated African American, Latin American Studies course, which is a 1-year course. And then we have 4 additional electives: the Sports and Society, Gender, Her Story, Women's Studies, a Minorities in America class, and a Genocide Studies course. So we are currently running the Sports and Society and the Genocide Studies.
Are they full year courses or?
They are semester courses. We recognize that our students, we have lots of high flyers and we have a lot of kids we have a lot of opportunities at RAM. So we find it best, other than our AP psychology and the mandated African American, which must be a full year course, we try to stick to the semester courses so students can have more opportunities to take more courses.
Any other questions for Jen? Thank you, Jen.
All right, thank you for the opportunities.
So next we have Greg, which is going to come up and talk about
So So next slide, please. So the goal of the math department is really to increase students' ability to problem solve and communicate and those skills dispositions that are really important for college and career that we've identified. And as such, it's important that we give students different opportunities to have experiences with hands-on concepts, multimedia concepts, and even field trips. So those are all included in the budget. Next slide. So a couple of the biggest increases from last year include we're adding 2 new sets of graphic calculators. We had bought a lot of graphic calculators in the past, and it's time that we replace the missing ones and increase our supply a little bit further. We're almost running out when we do PSAT and SAT tests in high school. So it's a mad dash to get a calculator, because that's the calculator we use for the tests. We also have some of these other experiences like multiplayer options, which is a UConn women engineering field trip. STEM night, we have an AMCA contest that I'm hoping they're going to move back to November, where it used to be, instead of during the busy springtime. And the financial reality fair is where we send students to usually one of the community colleges for a day, and they have hands-on experiences with financial decision making. So it's really helpful for them. And one that's close to my heart is the math team. We're kind of back. We went through COVID, the numbers kind of went down, we came back up again, and we have a lot of students interested in actually competing at school against the other schools, and we've been doing quite well. So that's actually a significant part of the budget, it's not something for math team. And that's, you just go out, it's really, I feel it's really important. And we also have software that gives kids interactive opportunities to get instant feedback and to learn concepts at deep level. Any questions?
Does the calculator technology evolve over time like any computer, or are they pretty steady?
The technology is fairly steady, although the resolution, speed, processing capability goes up. So the way they work is very similar, but the latest edition of the calculator is actually significantly better than it was, say, 5 or 6 years ago.
So, do they become retired?
No. We actually, some kids have calculators from 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
And they work in a similar fashion. They can't get all the apps of like some of the AP statistics applications we use, and some of the visualizations, they don't have that, but they're not colored, but some students still do use.
Yeah. So they break, they get lost, so on.
Yes, they get lost, and we're actually still building our inventory.
Yeah, okay.
So it would be helpful for you to have one kind of growing out.
Yeah, I can remember shopping with my daughter when the time came for one of these calculators. I found it pretty confusing, to tell you the truth. And so the idea of them being supplied by the school was a little easier for getting uniformity.
Well, students still buy, a lot of students still buy their own, but some don't, some forget, sometimes they're not charged, so it does help. Have some of the cost.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So my lack of understanding of the math team is mostly a result of nobody inviting me to participate due to my math skills in high school. But can you explain to me just a little bit how that works, because I'm super interested.
Sure. So we are part of the Middlesex County, Greater Middlesex County Math League. It's probably greater because it's rare. But it's us, a lot of shoreline.
So they do talk smack at math.
They don't play how far out we are, man. We're busy here.
I like it.
But we compete 6 times a year varsity, 4 times junior varsity. Yes, there's varsity, junior varsity, math team. And in each meet, there are 5 rounds. Each game is 3 rounds. Each round is 10 minutes long, 3 questions, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. And they work together in a team round. Each question is for 3 points, there's 5 of those. And then each team is scored and ranked immediately, so they know when they leave.
Is it computerized or on paper?
It's on paper, no calculator.
Okay.
And the topics are going in advance, and kids are still joining it. I had 2 kids join this week. We only have 1 meet left.
Do you travel or is this done remotely?
Oh, we travel.
Travel, okay.
Yeah.
Is there an official?
There's an official playlist on the bus. We celebrate on the way back. All the people get perfect scores in the rounds, and our team score. We talk about details. What was the question?
Are there uniforms and?
We did design shirts, and they convinced me after a bunch of prodding to design sweatpants, and so we got sweatpants last year.
Is there an official, like a referee or anything like that?
All the coaches are officials.
Okay.
And in each room where they have the competition, there is an official timekeeper and walk around.
And after the regular season, is there some sort of postseason for
You
math?
better believe it. Yeah, there's
I'd be disappointed if there wasn't.
Playoffs.
there's a state championship, which the top half of all the league's teams qualify for, so we'll be winning states this year.
Nice.
And there's a New England championship for the state people, and then there's a Associated Regional Math League competition that'll be at Penn State. And that's a good qualified field state team for that.
And how long have we been doing this?
Have we?
How long has Ram been a participant?
Oh, for a long time, since probably NTE.
What's the highest that we've
We've won. Oh, that was a long time ago. We're building up again.
Okay, all right, okay.
Sounds fun. I'm not good at math though, so
And the thing is,
I don't think
you don't have to be. You don't have to be. There's 5 official people, and several unofficial people come every meet. Last meet we had 5 official, and then they count towards the team. And then the people who are unofficial, they compete and get scored and celebrated, but they don't count towards the team. And you usually have more unofficial people than official.
How many people are on the team?
I'll probably have 15 to 20 active members.
Is it pretty balanced across all 4 grades?
It is more upperclassmen this year. So we'll do some recruiting in the fall.
And is there a middle school version of this?
There's a math counts in the middle school that we just started last year or 2 years ago, and that is some of those students are now on the math team.
Okay.
You should not feel bad because I didn't know a lot of the stuff. We hosted a JV.
We also did JV, yes, in November.
So it was definitely intense. I mean, there was a lot of people here from a ton of different schools,
Yeah.
and Greg educated me about the math team, and it was pretty cool to see.
What's the season defined? Like, is it winter sport or?
It starts in September and it ends in April.
Oh, okay. So there's still competitions going on?
Yes, we have another competition plus states.
Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. Any other questions? Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
For students getting calculators, are they assigned certain calculators?
If students have financial need and need to sign out a calculator, they can do so.
Okay.
But in the classroom, we have these are primarily classroom sets that stay in the classroom.
Okay. All right. My next question was going to be if the student lost a calculator, would they be responsible for it?
Yes, so if they sign out, we have a contract that they sign.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, is your budget flat from last year or?
It's a little bit higher primarily because the buses and the graphic calculators.
Anybody online? Questions? Anybody here? No? Okay.
Greg, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Next, we have Gloria Vega Boulay coming up and talking
Okay,
about
do that next.
language.
So the World Language Department's primary goals are to develop skills and proficiency in the three modes of communication, which are interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational. We're also very interested in the skills and dispositions that we have as RAM, set up as RAM requirements and also expectations. We also are looking to build careers and growth to become citizens of the world that we are going into after high school. Right now, hopefully you can see that, I don't know.
They have hard copies.
Yeah, okay, perfect. This really just focuses on the high school, and I just gave a 3-year span just so you can see where the money started 3 years ago and how it has gone up and down depending on the different areas. The biggest increases for me this year are going to be in the textbook and the world language assessment category, and there is some increase in the instructional supplies, and that kind of lends to the assessment component that I'm trying to add into our budget. Some of these things are for both middle school and the high school, and I've highlighted them for you so that you can see that these are technically some things that do kind of go into the middle school realm and other shared expenses, like subscriptions to online platforms and other different things. One of the increases in the instructional supply area was the Ed Novella. I doubled that budget so that I can have more classes doing some online actual listening, authentic films and sorts where they assess their skills in different types of grammatical skills, and so that they can kind of build that component so that when they eventually take the Apple test, which is the world language assessment component that I've added, they can hopefully get their seal of biliteracy. So our big plan for next year is to implement the Apple assessment and hopefully get our students to achieve the seal of biliteracy, which will then give them a recognition not only on their transcript, but also a seal on their diploma saying that they are proficient in either French, Spanish, or Latin. And the nice thing about this is that the test is fairly inexpensive. It's $10 per student. I'm thinking we probably will run 50 students or so, depending on a couple of things, but in December, which will then give kids the opportunity to reassess maybe in May if they don't pass all 3 parts. It is 3 modes of communication, which would be speaking, reading, and then also listening. Any part that you don't pass, it's only a $5 sub fee, so you don't have to repay the whole thing. So anyone who wouldn't pass would have the potential to repass or retake the assessment in May. And then also too, we're hoping that by the time May comes, our sophomores who are in the level 3 language and often stop there, will still be able to take that assessment and have time to graduate with the seal of biliteracy. So that's really that biggest add-on I'm really excited about. We do have another component, which is the textbooks, and that is an increase because we do have to buy our seats for our textbooks electronically, and we have to pay a minimum of 15 students to get the online access, and we have 2 books that need to be renewed, and they're 3-year contracts. And then beyond that, pretty much all my other components are the same in terms of the budget, and the middle school has gone down a little bit, and mostly that has been because technology. I kind of tried to take away a little bit from that area because we did so much buying during COVID that I think we're all set up for a lot of the new, more expensive items. But we still do have some needs, but we'll see how we go. So that's primarily what I think.
Any questions, Rick?
Eric? Anyone online with questions? I had one. Let's look back to that AAPL test. Is that regional or is that a national?
That's a national test.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's the component for Latin is called a LIRA technically, but Apple is more of a overseer of the assessment, and it does qualify for all languages, Romance and non-alike. So, yeah, it's nationally and it's approved by the state.
Similar to math, nobody was really asking me about my language certification because I didn't have them. So my questions are born out of ignorance. But I know they get the certificate on their certified on their transcript and their diploma. What can they do with that? Like, what is that?
Well, if they go for a job, they can say they're proficient.
Okay.
I know on college applications, there's an area where you can speak to your proficiency in another language, and they can say if they're to come, when they're applying in November, which is a really big, I think, a big component of making themselves more well-rounded. I mean, it's a selling point. I think it's also more, Spanish is one of the biggest languages we speak in this country. It just helps them become more communicative, I think, with the world they're going to go into. And even if they are not going into college and they're going into a trade, there's so many trades that involve Spanish speakers, and it's beyond just the language, it's understanding the culture and how they interact and some of the kind of personal skills that you need, which this test will then prove they can do.
You may not know the answer to that, that's okay, but there's, I know in the military there's a certification for being qualified at a certain literacy for certain languages. Is there a similar, state or federal government certification or anything that you're aware of? And does this reflect anything?
So this is approved by ACTFL, which is what I call the mothership of world language. So they pretty much said that they set the standards for what is expected to be proficient in a language and what are good practices and what is, or I would say, I don't know about the military, but in terms of education. So it's kind of like they're the go-to when it comes to expertise. And so this pretty much, and this qualifies, and I'm in most states, I think, Connecticut, I don't know any, there's maybe a couple of states that don't have a seal by literacy, but almost all states do. So it's nationwide, it's not just like a take down here.
The reason I ask is that one of the things that's always impressed me about the RAM staff in general is that your focus on making sure that kids walk out of here either walking into the next education setting, significantly better prepared, or walking into a career situation. And so, anytime we can tie back some of those things like the SAFEL test, and it ties directly to, a career opportunity, especially in the federal or state government, I appreciate the fact that you guys all do that. So I'd be interested to know if that actually, does the state actually break down and recognize that as considered bilingual if the federal government
It is
does?
recognized in a place of business or employment. It's definitely something you can put on your resume and say you're proficient in a language. It qualifies you as being proficient and able to speak.
Having some experience with the federal government, I'm fairly sure that they don't make it that simple. But I'm sure it's probably relatively easy after that. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, and that's when they get the practice on, on the spot, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
So next we have Dan Trudeau is going to come up and talk about athletics. Dan is doing double duty this evening. He is here to present his budget for you all and obviously take any questions that board members may have. He'll then, once he gets through the questions, he's going to excuse himself because it's also senior night and the last home wrestling meet of the year, and so he's doing double duty. So I just want to preface that before Dan spoke.
Thank you. So the overarching goal for the athletic department and myself as the athletic director is to provide our student athletes with a positive educational athletics experience that's also competitive. So with that, some of those supporting goals that drive the budget and drive the budget process, providing students, coaches, and families with resources, education, and assistance with pursuit of college athletics opportunities, provide coaches with necessary resources to maintain high program standards, and implement contemporary coaching tools and strategies, maintain an appropriate cycle for uniform and equipment upgrades that supports a safe environment and a commitment to providing and promoting all student athletes with a fair, high quality, competitive experience. And lastly, we're in no particular order, but to provide and promote a structure that aligns middle and high school programs with one another, which fortunately Ramley had a great opportunity to do because our buildings are directly connected to each other. So with my actual budget and the numbers, the driving factors of what goes into my budget, which are fairly repeatable on an annual basis, are annual consumable team needs. These are things such as football, soccer balls, basketballs, things that we kind of need to replace and replenish annually. Uniform replacements, which we're trying to get our teams new uniforms, get our varsity level teams new uniforms every 3 to 4 years, and maintain that appropriate cycle to maximize the life of uniforms. And then equipment upgrades, which very similarly, we want to purchase good equipment, we want to take care of our equipment, and we want to get the most out of it. But as this equipment is used in athletics, it eventually breaks down and we need to replace. So this year, one of my biggest ticket item is a new wrestling mat for our wrestling team next year. Some other driving factors, dues and fees, are fees to the CIAC, our fees to the CCC, which is the regional conference we belong to, co-op fees to schools that we participate in co-op sports with, Blackledge for our golf season. Obviously, that's where our golf team plays their home matches and practices every day. And officials costs are obviously a huge one, paying for our referees. And then obviously transportation is a driving factor for anyone's budget right now, but especially in athletics. We have an athletic training services contract. Select Physical Therapy is currently our provider for an athletic trainer. And then various software services for some of those happen to go hand in hand with our athletic training services. And some are used as college recruiting tools and coaching tools simultaneously. My budget from last year to this year, I think stayed fairly flat. The biggest changes were actually in transportation, and it actually shows a decrease in transportation. But that's really because the past few years we have been budgeting to try to bus our co-op teams to their host location. And the fact is, with the bus shortage, the bus driver shortages, the bus company is just absolutely unable to provide that as a service. So that's been taken out of the budget, which is why you see a pretty good dip in that area. Outside of that, I think everything stayed relatively on par with where it was. You'll see a slight increase in supplies, which is, due to inflation, as a lot of these annual consumable needs that I mentioned, those prices have significantly jumped over the last 2 to 3 years, as well as the wrestling mat, which is a fairly big ticket item to be replacing at this time. So with that, any questions?
The second line item from the top, is that the athletic trainer?
Yep, that's the athletic training services contract.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I had a question. You said the co-op teams, would you be more specific? We're not busing people that we have that are participating in a co-op at another school? We're not busing them for that?
Yeah, we have a hockey co-op that goes to Bolton Rice Palace. We have a swim co-op that goes to Manchester High School. We have a girls ice hockey co-op that goes to Newington.
So they're just figuring out their own transportation, or how's it?
They're figuring out their own transportation, which is historically what they've always done. I think in an ideal world, we're offering them transportation, but it's not an ideal world right now, with buses.
Okay. Is there anything else that you did? Because you did make a pretty significant drop in the cost. Is there anything else that you did, best practices for trying to save money on the transportation, or is it just the co-op stuff that's falling out?
I mean, to be honest, I wish I could tell you there's a best practice I'm using. No, I mean, it's due to that, taking those co-ops out. And even, to be honest, even when I took the co-ops out, I took them out and then I had to account for the inflation that's gone on and the cost of buses. So it actually, it still got jumped up even once I took the co-op buses out.
Okay.
I'd like to think I'm not irresponsible with buses. We do, we know the counts of each bus. We know what size bus we can get, and we manage that. So.
Good. David, question?
How many co-op teams are there?
We have girls ice hockey, swimming, boys ice hockey, and off the top of my head, I believe that's it. We have those 3 co-ops.
So how does that work with uniforms and things like that?
So that's why we pay a co-op fee to a
That's
school.
where the fee goes?
Yes, yeah. So, I'll use boys ice hockey as an example. Ice hockey is an extremely expensive sport. We pay $5,000 to Rockville High School, who is the host of the program, and that helps cover, I'll be honest, a very small part of their uniform costs. Helps offset transportation, referees, coaches' stipends, etc. In the sport of hockey, those students pay a fairly significant participation fee for that. In a sport like swimming, where we're just over at Manchester High School, there's no real, there's no crazy cost for them because they're not renting out space. They have a pool there. We pay a flat fee to Manchester High School, which again, it helps offset the swim officials, helps offset busing and transportation, and the various pool repair fees that can happen throughout the school year.
Have we completely cycled through all the former mascot uniforms? Yes.
So
that's all done. We're all Raptor uniforms.
We're all Raptors uniforms. Girls lacrosse was my last team to get new uniforms because before we changed mascots, they had just gotten new uniforms. Fortunately, those uniforms did not have any sachems insignia on it, so we were able to use it. But they have new uniforms this spring that have our R and are well branded as Raptor uniforms. So.
Anyone online with questions for Dan? I think Mike, did you have one? No, okay, sorry, raise your hand. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you guys.
And last but certainly not least, we'll have Scott come up and talk a little bit about IT.
Thank you for last but not least. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me present my goals and budget driving factors. You can go to the next slide. We work off a continuous improvement model. So we break our goals into 3 areas, which is communication, procedure and process, and instructional technology. This year, I'm not sure if you can see that, our first goal is to develop guidelines, common practices, communication strategies, update and inform community members. Our next goal is to review and revise the practices, procedures, and resources of the technology department and infrastructure to streamline the technology services department. Our last goal this year is to build upon technology-related resources to further connect technology to teaching and learning to sports and achievement. And these goals have objectives under them that we revise the objectives every year as a continuous improvement model. And if the goal we feel doesn't fit our drive anymore, we need to modify our goal. So I'm not going to go over every objective with you, but I did highlight the objectives that directly impact the budget. Go to the next slide. I have a lot of requests this year, so I'll just go over those quickly. So this slide outlines the driving factors. I broke those again into 3 parts. I guess I like 3 parts. I broke them into supplies, software, and equipment. So under supplies, I actually have 2 reductions, which are a reduction in projector bulbs. This is a reduction due to the installation of interactive displays at the middle school. The second reduction is for toner. We've actually been more efficient in the use of copiers, so we were able to reduce toner and ink in the supplies line. The big addition to the supplies line is the UPS batteries. So we're required every 3 to 4 years to replace the batteries. So we have to replace batteries in all 8 switch closets. And the next area is software. And the first item in software is really software inflation. So we're seeing a 5 to 10% increase over all software companies. And some of those software companies we have a substantial stake in. And so that's some of the big increases in software. The help desk software is an increase to our budget, but it's more realignment. We realigned, and it's not really an increase to the overall budget because we've combined software platforms with facilities. The next one is the virtual email encryption software. So this is a new requirement from the cybersecurity insurance. They're requiring us to have software available to employees such as central office employees, special ed, to encrypt students' sensitive information that's being sent outside the district. The next item is our backup and recovery. We are restructuring how our backups are done and how they're stored so that they are protected from any data loss or corruption. Another item is you'll see larger office screens for the high school administrators. They want larger screens in their offices to be able to review camera footage a little more clearly. We're replacing an aging badge printer. This year, we need a new badge printer from Canon Printers, and we usually do new employees and replacement badges, but we're looking to possibly do our own badges with fobs built into them. The high school is requesting an additional Raptor system. This is the Raptor visit management system. When they have large groups of visitors, it sometimes gets overwhelmed in the office, so they need an additional system to support that. We have a request from the art department for drawing tablets, so that the students can draw on touchscreen tablet. And then the largest request is for the classroom interactive displays. This will complete the replacement of the smart board projectors for the high school. We finished the middle school last year out of our finance package. And then the final piece to equipment is the finance package. So again, we're looking to, again, this package allows us to make yearly purchase of technology as part of our life cycle plan. This will continue our plan for 4 packages, all 4-year finance. This allows us to provide consistency to our technology purchases, and as you can see in the chart below, next year there will be no increase to the line again, unless we want to add funds to that line to create bigger packages for more purchasing power. And that's about all I had for requests. Does anyone have any questions?
Please. Did you have a question here? Okay. I have no questions. The projector bulb replacement, that's because of the offset from the classroom interactive displays, is that what you're saying?
Yes, we replaced the whole middle school.
That's nice. How much do we normally spend on projector bulb?
It's between 1,500 and 2,000.
Real money. What's the life cycle on those interactive displays?
Well, we projected it out. They could last 18 years. We have a life cycle of 10 years to be realistic.
So the rotation plan is targeted for 10 years.
So same as like infrastructure.
And that's not part of the finance package. That's just about the tablets for the kids in the schools, right?
What was the question?
I'm sorry. Can you explain the finance package a little bit more? That's recycle. That's having a new version of computers come out for each year.
Okay, so we use the finance package for either replacement through the life cycle, or we actually use it to innovate. So if there's a year, like last year, we were at low purchasing, so we had to purchase just Chromebooks. We used the remaining funds to purchase the replacement displays.
Okay.
So we use for any purposes, but it also used for our website.
Is there an increase? Is this an increase over last year?
For the whole technology budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's approximately 130,000 over last year with salaries and everything.
It's 130,000 more
Yes.
over last year.
Yes. The interactive displays are 60. That's what that.
Did you say 60?
60.
Anything else? Joe? Anyone online? Questions? So, hearing none?
I'll just follow up on Heather's question. So if I'm looking back, and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong, technology and hardware costs have increased by about $80,000 in totality, and software costs have increased by about $30,000 in totality. So there's definitely some increases just due to inflation and obviously some of the bigger ticket items such as the interactive boards.
That's it.
Thanks, Scott.
Circle back.
Please.
For a second.
Please do.
On the topic of world language.
World language, do you want me to stand up here?
No. You
For them, maybe? I don't know, or no?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll just tell my whole story.
sorry.
So, I'm not gonna grill you, I promise. So what came to mind is, I was talking to a fellow one time who worked for Coca-Cola. And his job was to go to stores and check out the supplies and then figure out what the needs were. And then that would be sent back to the warehouse. A truck would be loaded, a driver would come out, and that way the stores would have an adequate supply at all times. And the guy told me that, and at that time, it was hard to get a job for Coca-Cola. It's not like now when there's lots of jobs. And he told me that the only reason he got that job was that he was fluent in both English and Spanish. Because with some of the stores that he went to, the language spoken in the store was Spanish. And so in order to adequately service that story, you have to speak that language. And so the reason I'm saying that is, you were talking about having a little indication on the high school diploma that, a student was proficient in a certain language. And if they went off to get their first job after high school, that could be a credential, in a very practical way to getting their foot in the door, in times where, unlike today, where jobs can be scarce and hard to come by. So it could be a cool credential.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, knowing Spanish has never hurt me. So I feel like it doesn't have to be Spanish, but it is obviously something that is more helpful, I think, in our nation in a lot of ways. But I mean, it's not the only language, but it's definitely helpful. So I agree with you.
Okay, so that being said, first of all, thank you all very much for taking the time to put this together as well as coming here to present it. I know it's probably repetitive to a certain extent year after year, but I know the couple of years that I've been coming here, a few years now as a board member, and I know certainly as a new board member, it was so important to have you guys come and present and talk about your programs and give us an opportunity to ask about things that frankly we don't have any experience in, like the math team. That was great. I mean, honestly, I'm going to go to the next math match. I'm going to be there. But I just thought it was very interesting. Anyway, it's very helpful that you do this. It's very helpful that you identify kind of the outliers in your budgets because that helps us as board members communicate that to constituents. And so all of your work is not in vain. It's really appreciated. Thank you. All right. So at that point, move on to item 6, which is the public comment session. And you'll bear with me. Hebron Andover Marlboro community engagement and attendance at Board of Education public meetings is welcome. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the Board of Ed may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the Board of Education is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the Board of Ed is not permitted to engage in any discussion of the comments presented. So at this time, is there anyone physically present that is here to provide public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone online that's joined us that would like to provide public comment? Eric's giving me the left and right, so I'm going to assume that's a no. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
All motion.
Gabe makes the motion. Is there a second? Joe seconds it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a voice vote. All in favor of adjournment? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Nice job.